This week on Stay in the Truck, we're going to preview the SEC West. So grab you a cold beverage and let's go. Welcome to Stay in the Truck, the ultimate podcast for sports enthusiasts and avid gamblers alike. Each week we'll provide you with invaluable insights, analysis, and tips to elevate your game. We can be found on all major podcast and social media outlets. See the show notes for details. Stick around to the end to hear this week's most boneheaded sports moments with our Stay in the Truck Awards. So let's jump right into this week's show. So today we're going to jump right into the SEC Conference. Guys, I am so excited about this show. The only thing I like better than talking about the SEC is watching SEC football. So we're going to begin here with the West, and we're going to go right down to Starkville. I can already hear the cowbells. Mississippi State. These guys finished up last year, number 20.
Yeah, had a good season, 9-4, straight up, 7-5-1 against the spread. They're going to miss Mike Leach.
I think those cowbells are going to have a lot less to bang about this year.
Yeah, I think everybody's missing Mike Leach.
Yeah, they're 120-1 to win the conference, so that kind of tells you what the bookmakers, feel about their talent. And Zach Arnett's going to try to replace him.
They should be 500-1.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be tough. Arnett comes in as he's defensive-minded head coach, and he's taken over for one of the best offensive minds that ever coached. It's going to be tough. They get 8 starters returned, but those returning starters, they were all built for a whole different offense, the air raid, and they're not going to run the air raid this year. New offensive coordinator and Kevin Barbie comes from Central Michigan. He was there 20 through 21, App State 22. They did lead the Sun Belt in scoring in App State last year, so, I mean, that's a plus. But, this is a team that averaged 30 points a game, 83 rushing yards per game. That was 128 out of 131. But 307 yards passing, number 11 in the nation. So, QB Will Rogers, he'll be back, 3,900 yards, 35 touchdowns. One of the key transfers from the offseason, and you don't really hear a lot of people talk about it, but Mike Wright, the senior out of Vandy, the quarterback, he transferred down there. This guy, 975 yards passing. He had 12 touchdowns. He can run a little bit, 517 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns. Might even be a better fit for what the new OC wants to do.
But how did they sell that when they were talking to this kid? Because it's like, Will Rogers has been there forever. For what it is, he's had some pretty good success, especially under Mike Leach. And then, they're just worried he might go down or what?
Yeah, well, I'm sure the kid didn't want to play for Vandy anymore anyway. So
Right. Will Rogers, he had a great year, 4,000 yards passing, almost 35 touchdowns, 8 picks. But how much of that is Will Rogers, and how much of that is Mike Leach?
Yeah.
So time will tell. I'm with you. I've actually, you got them at 6.5. I don't know much about these running backs because they never ran the ball.
Yeah.
So we don't have much to judge on.
But they're going to run it this year.
And they're going to run it this year. So those guys got to step up.
You see, look, though, this Kayvon Lee, though, that running back room was full at Penn State. So he come on down. He's a stud. He can run the ball.
Yeah,
he can run. So yeah, they're gonna have some weapons. But Ra Thomas, their leading receiver for last year, he headed to Athens for some reason. I don't know why anybody would want to transfer out of there and go to Athens, but he did.
Go Dogs.
They got 2 transfers in to play tight end, one from TCU, and then Ryland Good he's a senior from Georgia. That tight end room at Georgia was packed, so he's probably good too. 4 senior starters return on the offensive line, but there again, that they're pass blockers. I can assure you, they're not much of a run blocking offensive line.
They're not used to it anyway.
Yeah, they're not used to it. So
we'll see how they transition.
The offense is going to be a work in progress. I think everybody realizes that, and I definitely think you'll see a lot of grinding out games, slowing things down. They get 4 starters back on defense. New defensive coordinator, Mac Brock. He was the linebacker coach. So they promote him up. This defense gave up 24.4 points a game, 360 yards passing a game. Freshman nose tackle this year. They got a senior coming back on the line, and Jaden Crumbly, he 15 tackles and 2 sacks. Their defensive ends are senior-lated. Linebacker, Nathaniel Wilson, he's a 6-year senior, 113 tackles and 6 sacks and 1 interception last year, so he's a player.
Yeah, 2023 All-Conference SEC.
Yeah.
That must have been a COVID special right there.
It might have been. But this Jet Johnson, another senior outside linebacker, 115 tackles and 2 sacks. So I believe their linebacker room might be the best unit on the field.
Might be the strength of their team.
Yeah, could be.
So, Jeff, we talked about this a little bit pre-show. How disruptive is it for a team to have a brand new offensive coordinator and a brand new defensive coordinator?
And a brand new head coach.
And a brand new head coach.
I mean, these kids are I'm sure that they are going to have to, they know they're going to have to be up for the test. They know there's going to be change, but I think it's not just that. It's these kids going in and out too. So it's like all new teammates too. It's just kind of, it is what it is now. I mean, this is the new college football, and kids are going to have to learn to deal with it. And you know what? If they don't like it, they can get in the portal.
Well, they're lucky they got 8 starters returning on offense. If they didn't have those 8 starters returning with all those new coaches, trying to get those guys to gel together like that would be extremely difficult. But hopefully those coaches walked into a room of guys that already have some good communication and some good chemistry.
So let's talk about this schedule. I mean, this is no cakewalk whatsoever. They've got a couple of easy games, and boom, they play LSU. Towards the end of the season, they've got 4 tough games in a row, and 3 of them are on the road: Arkansas, Auburn, and Texas A&M. So
I got them underdogs in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, and I pick them when Kentucky comes to town. I got them going 5-7. So I'm going to lean to the under on this.
I wrote right before you said that, I wrote their ceiling is 5 games.
Yeah, I just, they might, if I was going to bet this, I'm not going to lay 165 anyway at 6.5, but I don't see them getting to 7 games. If they get to 6 games, it's a great year for that team. They're bowl eligible, first year head coach, all new coordinators, the whole 9 yards, trying to get over the passing of Coach Leach. So I got them going 5-7. Maybe they can squeeze that 6 game out somewhere. Time will tell, but I think it's going to be like Chris said. I don't think you're going to hear too many cowbells ringing down there this year.
Well, I mean, 7 of 8 games. When you got that many games in a row, like they're not even spread out. It's
no.
Boom, boom, boom. LSU, South Carolina, Alabama, 3 in a row. They get a little break with Western Michigan, then right back at it. Arkansas, Auburn, Kentucky, A&M. Like, it's just beat down after beat down.
Yeah.
Like, even if they play better than expected, they're going to get beat down with those teams that many back-to-back. This is one of the toughest schedules I've seen us look at.
Yeah, it's the 16th toughest in the nation. Those last 6 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the last 6 games, they don't get any weeks off. They play at Arkansas, at Auburn, Kentucky, at A&M, get Southern Miss, and then they end up with Ole Miss. No weeks off.
No days off.
No days off, no weeks off.
Days off.
yeah, it's going to be an interesting season for these guys. All right, let's roll over to Arkansas. Razorbacks. Give a shout out to our Arkansas boys.
Yeah, Arkansas boys, Cole and Magic Michael. I'm sure they're listening and probably laughing their ass off at us. But, those are more the basketball boys. We'll have to get them on here whenever we get close to their season. But
And again, we have another team. Brand new defense coordinator, brand new offense coordinator.
yeah, the team that was 7-6 last year, 6-7 against the spread. So if you was betting on, you were losing money. They're 100-1 to win the SEC. Their win total set at 6.5. Sam Pittman's there. This will be his 4th year. It's hard to believe it's his 4th year. It doesn't seem like
I feel like he just left.
I know.
Like maybe second year, it seems like in my head.
He was the offensive line coach at UGA over there for Kirby for several years. So 4 offensive starters are going to be returning. Dan Enos, he's coming in to take over the offense because Kendall Briles got picked up by
TCU.
TCU, yeah. And Danny knows he's been around a lot. He just left Maryland, so we'll see what he's going to do. A lot of the fans, they're already not happy about it because he's definitely going to change the offense. He's got a different kind of philosophy. He's, where they like to ground and pound it a lot last year. I don't think you're going to see as much of that. This is a team who scored 32 points a game last year, 240 yards on the ground. That was good for 5th in the nation. 220 yards passing. That was good for 75th in the nation. KJ Jefferson is definitely a Heisman candidate. At least he's going to be in the conversation. He's a senior, and a lot of people were stunned that he came back, but he did. I've been hearing him compared to Anthony Richardson, but like a better Anthony Richardson. Like KJ can actually throw the ball, whereas Richardson is kind of like Joe Milton at Tennessee. He can throw it, but you don't know where it's going.
Well, they're still putting up Anthony Richardson highlights because he's the new best thing. I read the stat line for the Colts over their preseason games, and he had the worst stats of all three of their quarterbacks. And the next day, they announced Anthony Richardson starting QB.
God. Yeah, but like I said, they're gonna have their senior quarterback back. Then the running backs, one of the best in the nation, in Rocket Sanders, 222 carries last year, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. He caught the ball 28 times for 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. And a little key stat, he's the number 1 leading receiver coming back.
Well,
nice.
Both these guys, QB and running back, both of them are 2023 SEC All-Conference first team.
Yeah, and they should be. KJ Jefferson is going to get some Heisman talk until that SEC schedule starts, and that's when the Heisman talk ends.
Well, if this new OC uses Rocket Sanders correctly and continues to throw to him out of the backfield, when you got a back that can do that, that can catch out of the backfield, and you open that up and you have a mismatch with the linebacker, then you've got to take advantage of it, especially in this conference, man. You're going to have to wear that out.
Yeah, well, their receivers, they had to go to the portal and get 2, one from A&M Commerce, but he was a stud out there, 62 receptions, 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. That's Andrew Armstrong. And then they're going to depend on this freshman in Isaiah Sagna. And then you look at this tight end they got. I heard everybody's big on him. Sophomore out of North Texas in Gums. He had 34 receptions, 458 yards, 5 touchdowns. Offensive line, they went and got a tackle from Florida. They got a senior guard coming back. So
we've also got Bo Limmer too. That he's a stud.
Yeah. So the offense is going to be interesting to see what KJ and Rocket can do, and if one of them goes down, there's going to be some problems.
Yeah, KJ's going into week 4 looking like a Heisman candidate.
Yeah, like front runner, right?
Until they roll into Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, Baton Rouge, and that's the September 23rd again.
Boy,
there's that
must
date.
See TV.
Mark that date. Must see TV. All right. So
yeah.
Then the LSU. Then they got Texas A&M.
At Ole Miss,
at
Alabama.
and Alabama.
Yeah.
And those, 3 of those away games. Texas A&M at home, but LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, all away on the road. It's going to get ugly.
Yep.
I mean, they're going to come out looking like all-stars, and they might be 3-4, 7 games in.
So, and here's the biggest question mark and the biggest concern, I'm sure for Arkansas fans, the defense.
10 transfers.
10 transfers. They get 6 starters back, but listen to these numbers. They gave up 30.9 points for a game, good for 101st in the nation. 469 yards a game, good for 124th in the nation. 288 passing yards, good for 129th in the nation. 8.5 yards per pass, good for 123rd in the nation.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if you're really happy about the
Half of them
starters
are coming back.
Yeah, I don't know how good that is, right? They do have some experience over there though. A junior in Landon Jackson at the defensive tackle position, 23 tackles, 3 sacks. They get a defensive tackle in Carter. He's a senior. They get a defensive end in Jeff Coat, who is a senior transfer from Missouri. Chris Paul Jr. is a sophomore at linebacker. He was counted for 62 tackles and 4 sacks. Antonio Greer, a senior out of South Florida, comes in to play linebacker. They get a senior at cornerback in Dwight McGutham, 52 tackles and 4 sacks.
2023 SEC All-Conference.
Yep. I mean, he's probably their shining star over there. You know,
their defense is going to look great for a few weeks.
Yeah, well, they get a lot of time to practice here.
they got time to get it together.
Yeah.
Well, the question is, how beat up do they get after those 4 games?
Pretty damn beat up.
Yeah.
Then they got to finish out, right?
Yeah, and I was heard today they were talking about the offensive line, how, that's Sam Pittman's specialty, but apparently there's not a whole lot of depth after these guys right here. So that's kind of concerning too.
It doesn't matter how good a coach you are.
Yeah.
If you got nobody to go in and replace or sub
especially when you hit this SEC schedule. You know how that goes.
And that's and we still have the unknowns. We still have really no idea because Florida is a wild card, man.
Yeah, they really are.
So they got 4 games and then they got to go to Florida.
Yep.
By the time they get to Florida, Florida might be in the top 10 in the country, or they might be freaking 500 football team. There's such a wild card.
No.
Jeff is a Auburn fan. You are, and I think that Hugh Freeze is going to do some things, and whether we like it or not. And I know you don't want to get excited about them ahead of time, and you try to keep a level head about it. But the reality is, they always get athletes.
Yeah,
they're going to have they get the athletes, and so now they got a coach that, whether his moral compass points in the best direction, he can coach some football.
Well, that's a great segue here. Let's just roll right into Auburn, Alabama, boys.
Before we do that, what do you got them at? 6.5 win?
I got them going 5-7.
I got them going. Look at that. Oh, and then Missouri.
Yeah, they
So they got, not only do they have those 4 tough games, you got Florida and Auburn are wild cards. They could be unbelievably strong, or just even mediocre is going to be better than most.
Yeah.
And then they get a break, and then they get Missouri, who's going to come back and play physical. Missouri always plays physical. Even if they're not a great football team, they play physical.
Can they get to 6 games?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
5-7's got what I got them at. I mean, if they get to 6, they get to 6, but that still doesn't get you anywhere because 6.5 on the total.
Yeah, you got to play the under. I'm thinking 5 is their cap.
Yeah, and you're getting plus money on it too. So
yeah,
why would you risk?
Me and Jeff both wrote down 5 without knowing what the other had. So 2 times in a row here.
Yep.
All right, so we're just gonna guys, y'all buckle your seatbelts because this is Jeff's favorite topic here. We're gonna roll right into Auburn.
Yeah, thank God Brian Harson's gone. Jesus, and Alan Green. Oh my! I'm so glad, dude. The AD, he was terrible. He about torched the whole program by himself without Brian Harsin being there.
Well, and so just like just like Arkansas, these guys have a new head coach, new offense coordinator, new defense coordinator, but they did have the top transfer portal class in the nation.
Yep, that was big, and I mean, Hugh Freeze, you gotta give it to him. He did the best he could absolutely do because there was nothing left.
He was recruiting his ass off.
Yes, I mean he
lost some good ones. He was in the battle for some good ones.
Yeah, but he even said, right after spring practice, he said he had no idea that roster was like it was. He had no idea. He never would have dreamed it'd have been like that.
That bad?
That was terrible.
Yeah.
It was that. I mean, there was nothing there. Cadillac did the best he could possibly do stepping in to coach that team last year. They played for Cadillac.
Yeah.
And they played above their means because there really wasn't that much depth or players on that team to play like they did. So, I mean, there again, we was 2-6 last year in the SEC. It's terrible. 2-6. I mean, that's just terrible.
That's got to be one of the worst records they've ever had in conference.
Yeah, Auburn was 2-6 in the SEC last year. That's absolutely terrible. No bowl, first time since 2012. Lost 5 games by 14 or more points. No road wins. Got outscored by over 18 points every road game we played. Terrible, terrible. 5-7 straight up. 5-7 against the spread. Terrible. I mean, listen, 169 passing yards per game. That was good for 118th in the nation. Terrible. Absolute terrible. We're talking about a national champion 13 years removed. Terrible. Now Hugh Freeze going to come in and he's got to start he literally has to start all over. He went to the portal. Peyton Thorne, junior out of Michigan State, comes in. He's going to be the number 1. They named that last week. He 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. But the one thing about Thorne that I'm sure Hugh Freeze liked is he knows the system. He knows what he wants to do. He is capable of throwing the ball down the field and taking shots. Robbie Ashford will be the backup. He's a sophomore. 1,600 yards, 7 touchdowns, but he got sacked 24 times last year. So what does that tell you? He holds the ball a lot. Too long. 7 interceptions. Ran the ball for 710 yards. He had 7 touchdowns. Holden Gerner, freshman. He could be the number 2. Ashford's got him right now on the depth chart. Ashford's got him number 2, but the freshman has a big arm. That's another one that Hugh Freeze likes because he could take shots down the field.
Where's he out of?
Yeah, he's from Savannah. We look at the running back position. Tank Bigsby, he moves on to the NFL. Jacques Hunter Jr., 104 carries last year, 668 yards, 7 touchdowns. He averaged 6.5 yards carry. Here's the problem with him. There's something going on. Something happened last year that's going to run into this year. I don't even know what it was. I've been trying to look. I don't know exactly what he did, but they're not even sure he's going to start the season. So,
Like off the field?
Yeah, some kind of off
Bullshit.
the field or something.
Not academics.
Nah, no, it's not academics. It's something,
Right.
behavioral related or something. So this Demarion Austin's a sophomore. He played at Woodward Academy here in Atlanta. He's a stud. He can absolutely run the ball. Loves running between the tackles, so it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. Jeremiah Cobb is a freshman, awesome in the spring game. They go down to South Florida. They get Brian Batty. He carried the ball 176 yards last year, 1,186 yards on the ground, 8 touchdowns. He averaged 6.7 yards a carry, and he's gonna return kicks for us. He's fast. Kid's fast. So that part, the running back room's never really been an issue at Auburn anyway. They always had good backs. So he has recruited. He's got him some players in. The Jeremiah Cobb, that freshman, though, that's the one I'm really going to be interested to see where he ends up at and how many of these, especially if Hunter can't go to start the season, it's going to be real interesting to see. Are they going to let Austin, the sophomore, they're going to let him start? Or are they going to give it to the experienced junior out of South Florida and Brian Batty? That's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Now, look, I hope Jacques gets to play. I mean, listen, okay, if he has to miss the UMass game, so be it. That's kind of like Harbaugh's suspension, whatever. But it's going to be all hands on deck. I understand the second game of the season, it is California, and they are down, I know, but still, that's going to be a big game for this team to transition to they got to get back to used to winning again. And that's a 10:30 game. So these young kids they got to be able to step up. Receiving core, we'll see Javarius Johnson. He's a senior, 493 yards, 3 touchdowns. Corey Moore, the junior, he's supposed to be the playmaker, but nobody saw it yet. So, they raved over him coming out of high school. They raved over him in the spring game, but apparently fall practice, fall camp, he really hadn't done nothing. So he needs to step up. Jair Shorter, senior out of North Texas, 23 receptions, 628 yards, 11 touchdowns. They're going to need him. Shane Hooks, senior from Jackson State. And he got, I guess he got tired of Coach Prime, so, he didn't want to go to Colorado.
Didn't want to do it.
Yeah, but, he had 66 receptions, 775 yards, and 10 touchdowns. But that's at the FCS level. That's not at the big boy level, so we'll see. But now the tight end, in which Hugh Freeze does like the tight ends. This guy here, this Fairweather guy, he come from FIU. 26 receptions, 426, and 3 touchdowns. Apparently, he's been all the talk here at fall camp. Making plays.
Making waves?
Making plays, blocking, doesn't mind getting dirty. So that's gonna be nice to see. Our whole offensive line totally overhauled. 10 new additions, 5 of them from the portal. We got a senior center from East Carolina, a junior tackle out of Tulsa, senior tackle out of Western Kentucky. So,
Well, it sounds like they're trying to address the issue with all the sacks last year.
absolutely.
And I think Brian Batty's going to be your breakout star.
I hope so, man.
I think he's going to be the guy that he may not come out the first week. They may try to stay with Hunter. They may try to get some of these guys that they feel like it's their turn, but I think that kid's going to step up and be your breakout star.
I thought he was a good get. I really did. He's got speed. They're going to need somebody to step up, whether it is Hunter or Batty or the sophomore out of Woodward or the freshman in Cobb. I just don't think we're going to get to see the freshman in Cobb get a lot of playing time right now. So, but yeah, the whole offensive side, Hugh Freeze, it's going to take him a minute. It's going to take him a minute to get everything figured out. So defensively, though, we got a new defensive coordinator in Ron Roberts who comes out of Baylor. He's well heralded. He He plays the 4-2-5, the nickel. He likes to play a lot of guys, a lot of rotation.
Why would they choose him though? Baylor gives up a gazillion points a game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Hugh did. I don't know. Who you going to get though? What do we? I don't know who to get anymore.
I don't know.
But he's got 9 starters. But listen to these numbers, okay? The defense last year gave up 30.7 points a game, 94th in the nation. 206 yards total per game, 85th in the nation. 182 yards on the ground, 101st in the nation. That is not an Auburn defense.
No.
That is not an Auburn defense. That is, it was, I got sick of watching it last year. And he hits the portal to get a nose tackle from Kentucky, huge Justin Rogers, big old boy. Then he gets this Nasea Kite he's a senior defensive tackle out of Maryland. I don't really know. What is that? Maryland don't play defense anyway, so we'll see. But this number 15, this defensive end, Keldrick Falk, freshman, comes straight. Whatever happened over there at FSU, they thought he was going to stay, but apparently Hugh got an NIL deal for him that he couldn't pass up.
Yeah.
So the kid, he come on over to Auburn. Great pass rusher. They say they're just raving about him. So that's good. That's good because the senior Marcus Harris. He's okay. He's I don't think we're going to see him play on Sundays or anything. But you look at the linebacking crew. Jalen McLeod Jr. from App State, another transfer. He was good for 40 tackles and 6 sacks last year. So he likes to be around the ball.
Yeah.
And they say he's really good off the edge. That's going to be good. Got to have more pass rush, no doubt about it. Austin Keys, junior from Ole Miss, 39 tackles, 2 sacks. And then they got another weak side linebacker in Larry Nixon that come out of North Texas, 104 tackles last year. You just see portal after portal after portal, all these guys. The best part of the defense, though, for sure, is the defensive backfield. All 5 starters come back. Kalante Scott's a junior with 53 tackles and 1 sack, playing cornerback. He got him an interception last year. Naheem Pritchard, senior. DJ James, senior. Zion Puckett, a senior safety. Jalen Simpson, a senior free safety. And Jalen Simpson got him 2 interceptions last year and 37 tackles. So he's around the ball.
Right.
The DBs are going to be solid. It's definitely going to be the strong point.
You don't want your defensive backs out tackling your linebackers.
Which is crazy to think. That's what happened last year.
That means the guys are getting a little too far past the line of scrimmage.
So, listen, I know I texted you guys a couple of weeks ago or a month ago or whatever when I looked at that schedule first, and what did I say? They were 9-3. Well, the more I look at it, I believe I
think you're a little overzealous.
Might have had too many ultras that night. I honestly, man,
We're not sponsored by Ultra.
Not yet. But listen, I think the ceiling's 7-5, but realistically, it's probably more 6-6 or 5-7. Yeah, 6.
6+ is what I wrote down. I exactly wrote 6+. We've been on the same page every night, every schedule right now. I've got them. Obviously, well, California. You said could be. It could be a tough game flying out west, playing late at night like that. But I think they'll be so hyped up to do that because how many times does Auburn fly out and play on the West Coast?
Yeah, it's been a long time. We played Southern Cal last time I can remember, and that was like 20 years ago or something.
So just doing that, the adventure, them kids are going to be hyped up for that. Then they're going to come back and beat up on their buddy Samford down the street. A&M.
At College Station.
Listen, I know we don't give Jimbo any credit, but we'll get to them in a minute. That team's loaded.
Of course, you got so it gets tough, man. You got A&M, Georgia, LSU, and Ole Miss back to back to back.
That's a case of how banged up are they for the end of the season.
Well, we get the week off in between Georgia and LSU, so we'll see.
A&M, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, and you're coming off 4 games, hoping that you're not banged up for Mississippi State.
Yes,
because if you're banged up for Mississippi State, that could be a loss. But
Arkansas at home could be tough, and then of course Alabama at the end. It's always
Iron Bowl,
such a huge rivalry.
I got you winning 6, and then I got 3 if games, and the if games, in my opinion, are going to be A&M, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State.
Yeah.
So, and let's say you go 1-3 in the if games.
Yeah,
that leaves you 7 wins. So, you got them at 6.5.
I couldn't do it.
That's a tough bet.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
I couldn't. I'd just stay away from it.
Yep. 7-5 is the ceiling, but to me, it's 6-6 or 5-7. So.
All right, well, let's take a stroll down to Oxford, Mississippi for the Ole Miss Rebels.
This is a team that finished 8-5 straight up and 4-8 against the spread. They're 45-1 to win the SEC, and their win total set at 7.5.
And, Lane had a pretty successful year last year, and they've got him preseason ranked at number 22.
Yep, and they got the third toughest schedule in the nation. So Lane better be ready. And I have not officially heard him name a starter, but from everything I've read, it's going to be Jackson Dart. 2,900 yards last year, 20 touchdowns, 11 picks. He rushed for 614 yards and a touchdown. The transfer Spencer Sanders, the senior from Oklahoma State, comes in. Spencer Sanders just was 2,600 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 9 picks.
I think that move surprised everybody when Spencer Sanders chose to go there.
Well, yeah, we talked about it on the Big 12, and he did it after the spring game, right? Or before the right. It was a late move, whatever it was. But he was a 4-year senior. I mean, he was a 4-year starter.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what happened. Maybe him and Mike or maybe he just got tired and senior year he wanted to go do something else. The Walker Howard, the quarterback, is a freshman that decided to get out of LSU and head on over there to see Lane. He was the number 5 quarterback in the class of 2022. He's a dual threat quarterback, so I'm sure that's the future there.
That's the future, but I think they're going to groom him a little this year if they get some big leads.
I think so too.
He'll play the fourth quarter against Mercer.
Listen, what I was saying about the Spencer Sanders deal is he can leave right now. He can transfer right now. He's a senior. He's graduated. He can go.
He can go wherever.
He can go wherever he wants to. So I'm sure Lane is begging him, hey, don't, because if something happens to Jackson Dart and you got to throw Walker Howard in there right off the rip. I don't know if that's ideal or not, but we'll see. The running back, though, Judkins, man, the sophomore, he is fabulous. 274 carries last year for 1,567 yards and 16 touchdowns. That kid is a beast.
He's a player.
Yeah, he's the only Ole Miss kid that's on the SEC All-Conference team.
Yeah, Quinshon Judkins. He's definitely one to watch for, man. He is a fun player to watch. Lane hits the portal here in the receiver route, and he gets Zakiah Franklin. He's a senior out of UTSA. He's a stud too, man. 93 receptions, 1,100 yards, and 15 touchdowns. He goes and gets another senior from Louisiana Tech in Trey Harris, who accounted for 65 catches, 935 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He's got a senior coming back in Jordan Watkins, who had 40 catches last year, 450 yards, 2 touchdowns. Another senior in Dayton Wade, 27 receptions, 300 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He had to do something because they lost their top 2 to the NFL. Jonathan Mingo went to Carolina, and Mikael Heath went to Green Bay. So when your top 2 targets go, I guess you got to find somebody to get in there, right?
Find somebody to throw the ball to.
Looking even at the tight end spot, you got a senior out of Memphis and Caden Prexcorn, 48 receptions, 602 yards, 7 touchdowns. Look at the offensive line. Got a senior guard there, Jeremy James. Got a senior center in Caleb Warren and a junior right guard in Eli Acker. So Dart's going to have some protection. He's got the running game. No doubt about that.
That'll open it up. Anytime you got a good running game and a good, strong running back,
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, every one of his wide receivers have experience. If they can get the quarterback position worked out and he not throw the ball
and look,
to the other team, I mean.
Lane's a great play caller. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Whether you like him or not, the guy can call plays.
Oh, I think the only reason he had 20 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, but they are not afraid to throw the long ball.
Yeah.
Like they go for, I don't know the stats, but I bet you if we put up the stats on most attempts over 20 yards, they're going to be up there.
Yeah.
And that's gonna tarnish the quarterback's stats because I think Jackson Dart played well last year from what I saw.
I think he played well.
I only saw a few games. I think he played well, and I think that they're gonna do really well.
Yeah, I do too.
I think they're going to do well because they're going to get more opportunities too. I think the new DC coming from Alabama.
Yeah,
they got how many starters? They got 7 starters returning on defense. People don't put enough credit into the fact that when your defense makes the other team punt, and you get more opportunities,
Yeah.
you tend to play better and you tend to have better stats and
Score more points,
score
right?
more points, right? So that's what it's all about. But
It's funny, though, the Pete Golden deal, I heard him the other day. They were asking him about, what was the deal at Bama and, why'd you leave? Because he didn't get fired. He left on his own. Of course, everybody over there in Tuscaloosa, they offered to move him. They wanted him gone anyway, which, of course, anytime they don't win a national championship over there, everybody needs to go accept Nick. And they're going to, hey, after this year, they might start questioning him, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, he said he did it for so he could have more time with his kids, and his wife wanted to. So just a better, better life. And I can imagine, you imagine being the defense coordinator under Nick Saban?
well, the expectations are unreal.
You can't win.
You have to hold every team to 7 points a game.
Yep.
And you have to have the highest scoring defense in the country. And you have to lead the country in interceptions. And you have to lead the country in tackles.
Yes.
And you have to,
It goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And but we'll see how he does over here. He does get the 7 starters back. They get a senior nose tackle from North Carolina State to come in, and Joshua Harris. They got a senior defensive tackle in Pegasus. You look at the defensive end, and Jared Ivey, he's a senior, 37 tackles last year, 3.5 sacks. Another senior on the other edge, and Cedric Johnson, 32 tackles and 4 sacks. Got another senior that transferred in out of Louisville to play in the middle linebacker slot, and Monty Montgomery. He had 70 tackles last year, 6 sacks, and 2 interceptions, so he's a player. He's a player. Another linebacker, weak side linebacker in Coleman. He's a senior, 42 tackles, 4.5 sacks. Then you look at their DBs. 3 senior defensive backs and a senior safety out of FAU comes in Young, and they get this kid, John Saunders, this senior out of Miami, who, he might not light the world up, but he's a good cover corner. He can play. So they got some experience over there, which bodes well for them, and it's probably good for Pete Golden. I'm sitting here looking at all these seniors. Are you counting? Is that what you were doing?
Well, I had to pull it up because I feel like they had some good size, and I was trying to pull it up, but I couldn't remember who it was. They got that 6'7" defensive end. A couple of them.
Yeah.
They got two defensive ends that are 6'7". I knew they had some big guys.
They got some big guys, and they can get to the quarterback. So that bodes well for them. I mean, all their stats and defensive stats were, top 50-ish. They were pretty good. But you look at this schedule, like I said, it's the third toughest in the nation. They start with Mercer. That'll be a little warm up. But then the next week they got to go to Tulane. Tulane's defending conference champions. They get their quarterback back over there at Tulane, and Willie Fritz, the head coach, turned down the Tech job because he loved the talent he had. So
he didn't want to leave all them. He's been building that
team.
He didn't want to walk away
That's
from
right.
it.
That's right. So that's going to be I got that game as, I know I got it lined at Ole Miss as a 4-point favorite, but we'll have to see about that.
Well, that's going to determine what happens to a lot of other games for Ole Miss. Like if they come out and Tulane puts it on them,
the wheels could come off.
The wheels could come off.
And look, they're not playing that game in the Superdome where Tulane plays a lot of their games at. They're playing that game on campus at Tulane. So that's, them kids are going to be pumped, ready for that game. So that might, I don't want to call it a trap game or nothing, but because I'm sure Lane's going to have them ready to go. But they better be careful right there. After that game, though, they do get Georgia Tech at home. They beat Georgia Tech last year 42-0 in Atlanta. So, Tech can have that game circled if they want to, but I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot.
Yeah, I think it'll be good.
But then after that, he gets to go see his daddy and Nick Saban. So look at that, Tony, September 23rd.
September 23rd.
There
it is.
All you guys, if any of you guys have to work on Saturday, y'all take a day of vacation that day, okay? Or at least get off at lunchtime.
I think we may be down at the Bow with all the TVs. So
Yeah, that's about. We probably need to go that weekend. Then let's see, they got Alabama. I got them as 14.5-point dogs in that game. So
and then follow that up with LSU.
yeah, follow that up with LSU, and that's those 2 games back to back. That's going to be rough on them and the team.
Let's talk about this LSU line real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You got them at 4-point dogs.
Yep.
I think it should be about 14.
I was going to say, I'm thinking 10 or 12.
Well, when we get to LSU, we'll revisit some of the stats.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's easy, and I'm not saying anybody's buying in the hype, but it's easy to think, okay, that's the team to beat. Yeah, they played good, yes.
And their quarterback's come back with some experience.
Yes. So. Yeah, but, we'll see. And by the time that game gets there, man, that line could be totally different. Who knows?
Right.
But after LSU, you get to Arkansas, then they got to go to Auburn, then they get Vandy, Texas A&M, then November 11th, they got to go to Athens. So
they can take that big L.
Yeah. He ends up with UL Monroe, and then, of course, the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving night there. It's 7:30, and as far as their win total, it's 7.5. I would lean to the over. I got them going 8-4. Chris has got 7 or 8 too. So
I got the 8 circles.
Yep,
I'm
got the
telling
8
you,
circles. So
we're on the same page tonight, Jeffrey.
Yep. Simpatico again. I think Lane has a good team. Really and truly, Jackson Dart's going to have to play. He's going to have to take control of that offense, and they're going to have to just hope that Judkins doesn't get hurt, and that defense with all those seniors and juniors and all that experience plays well, plays up to their potential.
Well, I got them at 6 wins for sure, and then I got the 3 if games, and I think that they have a good chance to win 2 of the 3 if games, being Tulane, Auburn, and A&M.
A&M, yeah. So. Yeah. Yep. So 8-4, could be 9-3, could be 7-5, but I he's got a good team.
I think 8-4 is the ceiling. I don't think they're going to see 9.
No, I mean, to get to 9, that would mean they'll have to pull that upset over LSU or Bama, and he hadn't beat them yet, so I don't
see it happening now.
Yeah. So yep. So that's what we think about Ole Miss. We'll call them 8-4, and that would be a lean to the over.
What we got, T?
Texas A&M Aggies. These guys are preseason ranked number 23.
Yeah, finished the season last year at 5-7 and 2-6 in conference, and everybody's telling Jimbo they about had enough.
Well, he's got the greatest contract ever in college football, so he can tell them to fuck off and go 1-11, and they can't do shit about it except pay him.
Yeah, I mean, Jimbo, it's the 6th year over there. Not only did they finish 5-7, they were 4-7-1 against the spread. Absolutely total garbage to bet on. They got me a couple of times last year. I couldn't win betting on them, and I couldn't win betting against them. So they do get a new offensive coordinator in Bobby Petrino, because this is a team that only scored 22 points a game last year. That was 97th in the nation, and they got way too much talent over there to be doing things like that. So Connor Wigman, the sophomore, he only played in 5 games last year, 896 yards and 8 touchdowns. Max Johnson, which, yes, that is Brad Johnson's son, and that is Coach Rick's nephew.
No shit.
Yep, that's Coach Rick's nephew. He's going to be the junior. He's the junior backup there, 517 yards last year, 3 touchdowns. They got a freshman, Marcel Reed, that people love, so we'll see how all that ends up working out. Of course, their quarterback from last year, Haynes King, he transferred out to Georgia Tech. And then when you look at the running back position, Devin A-Chain, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns last year. He went number 28 in the draft to the Miami Dolphins. So they're going to try to replace him with Amari Daniels, who's a junior. They got Levin Moss, who's a sophomore, and Reuben Owens is a true freshman, and they expect to get plenty of touches for him, so they want his hands on the ball. We'll see about this receivers. Noah Thomas, a sophomore, Evan Stewart, a sophomore. Anais Smith is back. He's a senior. He got hurt last year, so he's a speedster. He can get down the field, no doubt about it. Then you look at the tight end, Donovan Green, the sophomore, 22, 233, and 2 touchdowns last year. He averaged 10 yards a catch. Well, guess what?
Gone.
Tore his ACL Saturday during practice.
Dunzo.
He's gone. So at the tight end position, they got Max Wright. He's a senior. He was good for 9 receptions, 129, and 1 touchdown last year. And his backup just happens to be Jake Johnson, who just happens to be Mac Johnson's brother. So they'll be on the same page if they ever get in the game together. So we'll see about the offensive line, man. You got sophomore, senior, and Bryce Foster. Reuben Faithry, sophomore right guard. Both of them have NFL potential, so that's good for their line. But other than that, I don't really know about the depth. I haven't really heard anything other than that tight end blowing his ACL out on Saturday. So the offense got a little work to do. And, Bobby Petrino, if anybody can get some numbers rolling, he can do it.
Well, it was 2 years ago that they had like the number one recruiting.
Yes.
Didn't they get like 7 or 8 5 stars or
the best
something?
ever, right? And then
It was the best ever. So some of them kids got to be coming in their own. They got to start making some waves. And if those kids are as good as the hype and all those recruiting talks, then Bobby Petrino should have something to work with.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. Whether Wigman, holds the position down all year or Max Johnson comes in there, they're going to be fun to watch. And if we get to see any of Marcel Reed, which I doubt we will, unless one of them gets hurt or something, but they're big on Marcel, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. If you look at the other side of the ball in the defense, that's they get 10 starters back. They were last in the SEC versus the Rush last year. That's a problem when you play in the SEC. Texas and Oklahoma, take note, because if y'all can't stop the run,
you're done.
Yeah. They got a sophomore defensive tackle in Walter Nolan. Then they got a senior nose guard in McKinley Jackson. They got Diggs back as a junior defensive tackle. Diggs had 28 tackles and 3 sacks last year. You look on the end there, they got Shamar Turner. He's a junior. Got lots of experience. Linebackers, Chris Russell Jr., senior middle linebacker, 66 tackles, 2.5 sacks. Edrin Cooper, junior, makes plays. You look at their DBs, you got Tony Grimes, a senior transfer out of North Carolina, which I don't know how good that is because that defense was terrible last year. Sam McCall, sophomore cornerback out of FSU, which, again, I don't know how good that is because FSU's defensive backs were terrible too. So they got some work to do there. Senior safety, Damani Richardson, 73 tackles and 1 interception last year. So they got some work to do all the way around on that defensive side of the ball. And when I look at their schedule, 33rd toughest in the nation, I'm a little bit higher on this team than most people are, just simply because I know the talent. Like Chris was saying, that recruiting class, there is talent there. Bobby Petrino, he can get a lot out of a little, and he can get a whole lot out of a lot. I got him going 9-3.
Well, we disagree on one finally.
I figured we probably would. I know I'm a little bit higher on this team than most people are.
Well, the beginning of the schedule kind of plays into their favor for them to at least start getting some synergies because it's not a super tough beginning of the year for them. They'll get a couple of games underneath them, and then it'll get a little bit tougher.
Miami should give them some competition, but they should roll through those first 3 games.
Well, they beat Miami last year 17-9 in just what kind of football game is that? I mean, for those two teams,
right?
Yeah.
Now, in this day and age, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's an average score for an Alabama team throughout the 90s.
Yeah. I mean, they upset LSU last year. Okay, so that was a big win. They beat Auburn, which isn't saying much, but see that's what's so crazy about this team. They only beat Auburn 13-10.
Yeah.
I mean, and we just discussed how horrid that whole Auburn team was.
The defense was awful.
It's terrible. So, but again, he brings in Petrino. Jimbo, he hasn't officially said he's going to step away from the play calling because I know it's going to kill him.
Oh, it's going to be tough. He's going to struggle doing that.
It's going to be struggle bus. But I got them losing. I got them losing to Bama. I got them losing to Tennessee. And I got LSU getting revenge that last Saturday in November.
So is this Arkansas game at a neutral field?
Yeah, it's in Arlington.
Is that just a traditional thing?
No, I don't think so. Well, actually, last year they played there too, so maybe it is. But
see, I'm not ready to discredit South Carolina yet. They ended on such a high, and they got quite a few players coming back that I'm not ready to chalk up South Carolina as an easy win like they used to be to some of these teams.
Well, it might be a little bit different if that was a road game, per se.
Yeah, but they're coming. Listen, it's not a road game, but they got Alabama.
Yeah.
Then Tennessee.
But they get a week off.
And then South Carolina.
They get a week off. Which is huge. That's great on the scheduling part right there because you're going to Rocky Top.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, like I said,
come home and take 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, if anything, they should be ready for that South Carolina
Auburn,
team, right?
Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee, 4 in a row. They're going to be banged up after that Tennessee game.
Yeah, so they'll definitely need that week off.
All right, well, I got them losing to LSU. I got them taking a loss to Alabama. I'm not riding that Tennessee train that everybody else is on. So I've got the 4 if games as Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Auburn. And if they win 2 of their 4 if games, I've got them easily touching base at about 8. Yeah. What'd you say you had them 9?
I had them 9-3.
That's not. We weren't that
close.
Far off.
We're close because simply, I feel like they're going to get Ole Miss. Again, this all goes back to the talent they got.
Yeah.
I mean, we know it's there.
I feel like Jimbo's just going to shit the fucking bed.
Well, if he takes over play calling and Petrino quits, I won't be surprised if that happens. If that happens after the New Mexico game after week 1.
They start arguing in the middle of a game, Petrino just leaves.
When they go play Miami on the road the second week and Petrino walks out at halftime or doesn't come back to the field at halftime, I wouldn't be one bit surprised. So we'll call it 8-4, 9-3, best case scenario. So
what's their
7.5.
7. Well, either way,
yeah,
you got to play the over. I think.
Yep.
I think you do.
All right, let's move on to LSU Tigers. We'll take a walk down to Baton Rouge. These guys, they finished up last year number 16, and they are preseason ranked number 5 this year.
Yeah, they finished the season at 10-4. Just absolutely mollywopped, boat raced, killed, crushed, whichever adjectives. Superlative. Yes, 63-7 in the. Now that was a Purdue team that there was nobody left to play, but anyway, they got the win. But LSU was 10-4 straight up, 8-6 against the spread. They're plus 450 to win the SEC. They have a win total set at 9.5. Brian Kelly enters his second year. He lost his first shot at an SEC championship last year when Georgia beat him 50-30. So that kind of, and that if you think back now, Daniels got hurt. Nessmeyer came in, but when Nessmeyer came in, they threw all over Georgia.
They weren't prepared for him.
No, they weren't exactly. It was not prepared for him. We sat here and watched that one.
As a Georgia fan, we've seen Kirby over-prepare for that starting quarterback and not be ready for a backup.
Yeah, so
on 4th and 17 or whatever the fuck
and they still win the game by 20 points. So this is a team that has 8 starters return on offense. They averaged 32.2 points per game. That was good for 28th in the nation. 445 yards per game. That was good for 27th. 180 rushing yards, good for 43rd. 265 passing yards per game, good for 31st. Needless to say, they had a hell of an offense last year. Jalen Daniels is a senior. Last year he passed for 2,913 yards, 17 touchdowns, only 3 picks. He rushed for 186 carries, 885 yards, 11 touchdowns. The leading rusher on the team.
Dual threat.
He's definitely a Heisman hopeful. I think he's 3rd or 4th favorite now behind Williams and Ewers out there at Texas. So, but if he really wants to be this Heisman winner, he's got to improve on his passing game. Only 63% of his passes were 9 yards or less. 63% of his passes were 9 yards or less. Think about that. That's almost hard to believe when he threw for 2,900 yards. So the receivers were, or whatever he was doing, they were breaking loose. But definitely have a capable backup in Garrett Nessmeyer, sophomore. He threw for 800 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. He did have 4 picks, but, that was limited action. And I'm sure when he was getting in there, there's a lot of chunking going on. So you look at the running back room, Noah Cain, a senior, 76 carries, 400 yards, 10 touchdowns. Josh Williams, another senior, he had 97 carries, 532 yards, 6 touchdowns. They get Logan Diggs, the junior, to come in out of Notre Dame. He had 165 carries, 820 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Obviously, Brian Kelly recruited him to Notre Dame.
I would imagine.
Right, so
wonder why Tommy Reese didn't give him a look. I guess we'll touch on Bama in a minute. Maybe we'll find out. But, you think about that Burrow era, and even before Burrow and the receivers, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, even before them, Beckham, Odell Beckham's out of there. They've had receivers. I don't know if you really want to call them receiver U, but they've been close the last 10 or 15 years. So, but Malik Neighbors, the junior, 72 receptions last year, 1,017 yards, 3 touchdowns. He averaged 14 yards every catch. So he's the one breaking the tackle, getting away. Right? Exactly. Yes.
Catching the ball at 6 yards and getting 14 out of it.
Yeah. Brian Thomas, another junior, 31 receptions, 361 yards, 5 touchdowns. Karen Lacey, a senior, he's going to get his catches. But these receivers, other than Malik Neighbors, it's going to be real interesting to see if one of them steps up and becomes one of those wide receiver guys.
I think one of these running backs needs to be a 1,000-yard rusher. I think if they get a running back that steps up so that Jaden Daniels doesn't feel the pressure to have to run for 900 yards.
Yeah.
If he can run for 500 or 600 yards, get 40, 50 yards a game when it's necessary, and that running game creates a better passing attack so he can average 12 yards, you know, instead. I think it's going to hinge on that. But, I think they can do it. I think they got the talent. I think they got the coaching. They got the starters returning. They're set up. This team is so set up for success this year that if they don't have it, it's going to be a real bad reflection on Brian Kelly.
And a big hangover.
Big hangover.
Because, I mean, listen, let's face it. This is a 10-4 team, or 9-4 in the regular season. But they're not. Yeah, it'd be nice for them to get that SEC championship, but they have national championship dream, like their window with this quarterback, because he's not there next year.
Yeah,
it's now for them, and they beat Alabama last year, so they got the confidence to do it. So we'll see what happens. You look on the defensive side of the ball, they get 7 starters back, and this defense was pretty solid last year. 22.9 points a game, 360 yards, 144 yards rushing, 217 passing yards allowed. Defensive tackle, Mason Smith. He's a sophomore. He's 6'6", 310. He's coming off a torn ACL. He missed most of the year last year. I think he got hurt in the FSU game, the first game of the season, before the game was over. Whatever play, I don't know if he sacked somebody or they got a turnover, but he was celebrating. He was jumping up and down, and he landed towards ACL. Big blow to that defense.
Every time I see them boys jump up and hit shoulders in the air, I mean, celebrate. And they're excited. They want to celebrate. But every time I see them jump up, like, I almost get to the point where, who was the kicker a few years ago that jumped by himself in the air towards ACL?
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
It was the NFL kicker.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've been like, man, if I was a coach, I'd be like, y'all just go high five, but don't be jumping up in the air and hitting each other.
Especially when you're 6'6", 310.
Oh, my God. Just don't jump, bro.
Yes. You look another defensive tackle they got, Jordan Jefferson. He's a senior transfer out of West Virginia. They're big on Paris Shan, junior transfer in out of Arizona. And Braden Swinson, they got another junior transfer from Oregon. So, Kelly hit the portal pretty hard there trying to get that line short up. The big old nose tackle in Wingo Jr., he accounted for 43 tackles and 3 sacks last year. On the end, they got Savon Jones, a junior, with 23 tackles, 4.5 sacks.
Perkins is a stud.
Listen, Harold Perkins, a lot of people are saying he's the best linebacker in the nation.
He might be.
I mean, 72 tackles.
We're going to see some of them dogs coming off the bench, though. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah.
Some of them hidden dogs we haven't seen yet. So.
But I mean, Perkins last year, he was the man. 72 tackles, 7.5 sacks. He even had a pick. So him and Greg Penn, the junior.
He's a dog.
Yeah, 77 tackles there. And then they went to the portal, and they got a huge get from Oregon State in the senior in Omar Spates. 83 tackles last year he had out there for them. That's a huge – and those 3 linebackers, they're going to be on the field the whole time.
Yeah, they're not coming out.
They're not coming out. So Whit Weeks, freshman, said he had an awesome spring game, so they're big on him in their linebacking core. That's going to solidify a lot for that defense right there. Those guys are tackle machines. They're cornerback, and Zai Alexander, he's a junior transfer from Southeast Louisiana. He had 24 tackles and 3 interceptions. Denver Harris, sophomore from A&M, transfers in. Problems already. Apparently, he's had to miss the last week or so of practice. They had team pitchers. They did not allow him to get in the pitcher.
Yeah, he's done.
So while they hadn't said he's officially off the team, Brian Kelly had a press conference that he's working on things right now.
Oh, yeah. Working on packing that suitcase.
Yeah, so we'll see. But if Denver can get on the team, he's a great player. So let's just hope the kid gets everything worked out. I don't know what's wrong with some of these kids, but Their safety, Major Burns, he's a junior. Their free safety, Greg Brooks, is a senior, and Brooks accounted for 63 tackles, 1 sack, and 2 interceptions last year. So defensively, I gave you the numbers earlier. They were in the top 50 in all the important categories last year. I don't really see a huge drop-off, especially with Mason Smith coming back. If he
they got 7 starters returning, and they got those transfers in that are studs. So I think they're set up, man. I told you they're set up. I got them at, what do you have them at?
I got them
9.5.
I got them, yeah.
I got them going 11-1.
I got them going 10-2.
Yeah, I see these. I see LSU as winning the SEC West this year.
Yeah, well, that would be back-to-back years. So
my thing is this first game though.
I'm not buying that sell you got there yet, T.
That's all right.
I'm listening to you.
That's all right.
But
So
I'm
this first game against Florida State.
Yep.
I think that's going to dictate the tone.
Well,
and the confidence. So
they lost last year, so I'm sure that they've worked a little extra in all these practices, the spring practice and in the fall camp, worked just a little bit extra. I'm sure they got the game circled. They don't want to start off 0-1.
right.
Whether it's in the conference, they damn sure don't want to start off 0-1 to conference, but they don't want to start off. Look, this is a team I just said they got national championship aspirations.
Yep. I think they win that game. They get the confidence. They roll.
Listen.
And then their next big test, they go into Tuscaloosa.
Here's my call. They're going to beat Florida State by double digits.
I agree with that.
I think they're going to beat them by double digits. And then I think we're going to hear all the talk about the Florida State quarterback being up for the Heisman is going to go away for like 4 games until he has time to
build himself back up.
Generate some stats and build himself back up.
Yeah, when he gets in his ACC schedule and can throw for 400 yards a game against those defenses. But, the 3 games I got highlighted for them is my what-if games.
Ole Miss,
Alabama, and then at the end of the season, A&M.
A&M's such a wild card.
Yeah, they are.
God
we just talked about them. I'm a little bit higher on them than most people. So those are the 3 games, and listen, all 3 of those are West games, so they matter a little bit more if they're going to get to Atlanta. So
they're coming off of Georgia State.
Yep.
The week before.
Yeah.
So they'll be ready for A&M. I think they put a beat down on them, honestly. I think that Alabama game's going to be close, but I think Alabama's out for revenge. I think that last year's Alabama team had a better quarterback and a worse team than what we're going to see this year.
Yeah.
And LSU should not have won that game last year.
No.
So I think that I don't know. I think they're going to take a loss against that Alabama team. They're going to go 11-1.
Yeah, they had to go to overtime last year in Death Valley at LSU to get that win over Alabama.
They're going to be in Tuscaloosa this year.
Yeah, they're going to be in Tuscaloosa.
It'll be another ball game.
Well, Tony, do you like them for the national championship?
The playoffs, they'd have to get through the playoffs. It's just with Michigan, Ohio State.
So
it's hard to tell.
If they win the West,
hypothetically, they run the table. They beat Alabama and they lose a close game to Georgia in the SEC championship. Both teams are going.
They should. Yeah. As long as Georgia upholds their end.
We made that point 2 weeks ago when we talked about
same for Alabama
and Georgia, right?
Like, same for Alabama. Whichever that Alabama or LSU team, because I don't really think that anybody else in the country believes that it'll be anybody other than one of those 2 teams.
No.
Whichever one of those 2 teams faces off against what everybody believes will be a UGA team. If both teams are undefeated and it is a close game, they're both going to the playoffs. Yep. If it is a blowout,
then it depends on what Ohio State, Michigan, and all the rest of them look like.
Well, so that's a great segue. Let's move on to the Crimson Tide of Alabama. These guys, they finished up last year at number 5, and they are preseason ranked number 4 this year.
11-2 on the season, 6-2 in the conference. You don't see that much out of the Nick Saban team. 7-6 against the spread, though, and guys, that's mostly because they were laying double digits in more than 3/4 of the game they played. So, Alabama was, for the last couple of years, they have been a bet on first half team. They just roll folks the first half of the game, and then Saban kind of controls it after there. So, 3-1 to win the SEC. They got their win total set at 10.5. The over, though, is +150, and the under is juiced to -180. So Nick Saban comes in his 17th year. He's won 11 games for 12 consecutive seasons. He's 194-27, 9 SEC West titles, 8 SEC titles, 16 bowl wins, and 6 national championships.
That's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, it's not even fair, right?
It's hard for you to say, huh? Being an Auburn fan.
God.
I mean, just saying it out loud.
That just
got to be
all that
fucking terrible.
does is just kind of takes that wound of fine balm and just kind of
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Stay in the truck.
being a SEC East guy, being a Georgia fan my entire life, I look at Nick Saban and I look at Alabama, and I still can't. I mean, just as a football fan, like you can't help if you're not a football fan if you can't look at that and admire what that guy has done for the
he's
sport.
the GOAT.
He is. He's the GOAT.
Yeah, he's
And he will be for a long time. And everybody wants to talk about, oh, Kirby's the guy now. Kirby's the guy now. Yeah, he is right now. But he's got to do it for 15 years.
Kirby's the Padawan. He's the protege, right?
Yeah, but he's got it. But they don't understand the intensity and the dedication it takes to have that much success over that long a period of time. Yep. So there's no talks about Kirby being the GOAT for 10 more years, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Unless he keeps this up for another 10 years.
Yeah.
Like he's got to be there, you know.
He's got to be there. And in this day and age, as much as football's changing and everybody's going here and there, it's going to be hard for Kirby to do that.
Yeah. And don't count this other guy out up there. I know it's the ACC team, but don't count another guy out if he stays around for 10 more years, because there's a Clemson Tiger team that's very likely to be in that top 4 every year for the next 10 years too. So you can't count them out.
I mean, every one of these teams have the same thing in common. They reload every year.
They do.
I mean, I'm looking at this. These guys only have 5 starters returning in offense and 5 starters returning in defense, and they're still going to be just at the top winning.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a team in Alabama. They have the 9th toughest schedule in the nation. Won 20 games in a row at Tuscaloosa, so they don't lose at home. They got the 5 starters coming back on offense, like Tony said. New offensive coordinator and Tommy Rees, he comes down from Notre Dame. This is an offense that averaged 41.7 points a game. That was good for 3rd in the nation. 473 yards per game. That was good for 12th in the nation. 190 yards rushing per game, 30th in the nation. 283 passing yards per game, 17th in the nation. But that was with Bryce Young. Bryce Young, number 1 pick, NFL draft by the Carolina Panthers. Now we turn to the mess that is the quarterback room at Alabama, and as far as I know, it's 8 o'clock on Monday, August 21st. Saban still hasn't named a starter.
I think it's Jalen Milroe. I think they're going with him.
Well, the sophomore, 297 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He ran for 263 yards and a touchdown. If it's not him, is it going to be Ty Simpson, or is it going to be the transfer that Saban told Reese to go get from Notre Dame and Tyler
Buckner? It'll be Tyler. I don't think that Ty Simpson is going to be in the mix this year. I mean, he might get a few plays, but I don't think he's in. I think it comes down to Jalen Milroe and Tyler Buckner, but I also think that Tommy Rees is going to do a good job this year. I think that Tommy Rees is going to put together something. The biggest question mark that they're going to have, and the way the other SEC teams are really trying to load up on the defensive line, is the fact that they lost most of their offensive line. But their offensive line struggled last year. So is that really a bad thing that they lost most of their offensive line?
No.
I mean, because they didn't have a bunch of fucking studs.
It wasn't your typical Alabama offensive line.
No,
so.
They didn't have a bunch of hogs up there holding it down last year.
And the funny thing about Tyler Buckner is Reese benched him last year for Drew Pine. So he benched him. I mean, I don't know what, I don't, that was one that I was kind of like, well, what? Now, I understand, he had to go from Notre Dame anyway because Sam Hartman come in from Wake Forest. So I guess he figured, give it a shot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but we'll see,
That is their one big question mark that everybody has, though. If there's any kind of skepticism about the team and how they're going to end up, it all goes back to that conversation about just what you said. It's 8 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Saban still has not picked a starter.
Nope.
Well, I think we'll know on Saturday, September 9th, if LSU is going to go 11-1 or 12-0, because I think that Alabama is going to walk into Texas And Texas knows. I don't know. I watched every play of that game last year. And before the quarterback got hurt, Texas was rolling Alabama.
We talked about Texas last week.
And Texas knows they got them.
They're not going to be as stellar as people think they're going to be.
No, they're favored to win the Big 12, but, I mean, that's the Big 12. And
but I'm talking about just on mentality alone. You're looking at an Alabama team that was getting physically dominated by a Texas team last year, and then Quinn Ewers got hurt, and he was throwing on them like they were playing 7-on-7.
Yep.
He was killing them, and he gets hurt. He goes down.
Hudson Card comes in, and he's not even he's at Purdue now.
Yeah, he's gone. So Hudson Card comes in, does his thing. Alabama wins, squeaks out a win, but on paper, Texas beat them up, and had Quinn Ewers played that game, that was a loss for Alabama. So I think that sticks in Texas' head. It's a mental thing. Alabama knows, man, we're about to go out there and play Quinn Ewers again. Last year, he was kicking our ass. You know, we got lucky that he got hurt, and now we got to face him again. So it's a mind game with these kids.
It is a mind game,
so
but
they're going out there to Texas, and if Texas squeaks out a win against Alabama, everything changes.
But again, these guys are 20-0 at home.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, they don't lose home games very often. So, but after this quarterback here, after these three right here, Saban's got some waiting in the wings. Dylan Longergang, the freshman, huge arm, big upside. Then they got Julian Sayin coming in, who is the 5-star from Carlsbad, California. So if he can get this part figured out, just get it solidified, and I'm sure they'll figure out something. You know, I mean, listen, the sky's not falling in Tuscaloosa, folks. I mean, I'm sorry they didn't make the playoff last year, and they didn't win the West or the SEC championship for that matter, but the sky's not falling. They do have some parts to replace, though. Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back that transferred from Tech to Bama last year, he got picked by the Detroit Lions with a 26th pick, so they're going to turn to the senior and Jace McClellan. Roydale Williams, another senior. Justin Haynes is a freshman, the future. Nick Saban loves him, so I expect to see Haynes get his fair amount of shots. Then you look at these receivers. Gone are the days of Minchie and the Heisman winner, Devontae Smith. They're gone. You could tell last year Bryce really didn't have the big target to go to. It was a whole totally different flow for him on the passing side. But Jermaine Burton, senior, used to play for the Dogs.
Because he got his attitude in check, though. The kid was a problem mentally.
Well, you know what I read is he decided to come back because he didn't like the way he got graded out for the NFL. So he decided to come back for his senior year, give it a shot. He had 40 catches last year, 677 yards, 7 touchdowns. Ja'Cory Brooks, another junior, 39 catches last year, 674, 8 touchdowns. Malik Benson, the number 1 JUCO transfer. He's going to be a problem. He's a playmaker, but apparently he's got some issues going on over there.
Well, there was a reason why he was in JUCO.
Yeah, and I think that might be spilling over, or Saban's got to teach him the culture, right? So Kendrick Law, another sophomore receiver. They got Isaiah Bond, sophomore. They expect a lot out of him, but so far in fall camp, he's just dropping way too many passes. You look at their tight end, C.J. Dupree, junior transfer out of Maryland. 30 receptions, 314 yards, and 3 touchdowns up there with Little Tua. So, the weapons, they don't look like your typical Alabama weapons, but they got some guys that can play, no doubt about that. Like Chris was saying, their offensive line, they lose those 4 starters. They're all young, not sure about the depth. They're going to start 2 freshmen and a sophomore on that line. They do have their senior center and Seth McLaughlin. And they got J.C. Latham is their right tackle. He's going to be drafted. He'll play on Sundays. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Saban gets 5 starters back. Does have a new defensive coordinator in Kevin Steele, who has been with Nick before. Steele's been all over the place. He was the DC at Auburn, DC at Tennessee, DC for the Hurricanes. Very experienced, knows what he's doing, no doubt about it. And I think that's exactly what Saban wants over there. Golden was kind of the wild card, and he decided to leave, but Kevin Steele can kind of rein everything in. And
Kevin Steele also knows what Nick Saban expects.
Exactly. He's been with him before, So But this defense, they gave up 19.7 points a game. That was good for 12th in the nation. 327 yards a game, good for 17th in the nation. 136 rushing yards, good for 40th. 191 passing yards, good for 16th. Defense was solid.
That rushing yard total's actually kind of, that's a lot more than they're used to. Being ranked 40th in rush defense.
Yeah.
This is a team that was always in the top 5.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yep. So, yeah,
that's going to be something they're trying to fix.
Yeah, nose tackle, Oates, sophomore. Defensive tackle, Tim Smith's a senior. The defensive end is a senior. You look at the linebackers, they got to replace Will Anderson, 3rd pick by the Houston Texans. Standout, just a great, great player. They're going to miss him.
He's crushing it already. Did you see some of his plays in the preseason?
Yeah, he's a player. No doubt about it.
From down the street right here.
Yeah, Dutchtown.
Maybe Dutchtown.
Dutchtown. I think he went to Dutchtown, yeah. Shout out to the hometown boy.
That's right.
At the jack linebacker, they're going to run Chris Braswell. And the middle linebacker is going to be Lawson. Then they got Dallas Turner. And at the weak side, they got a Georgia boy in there.
Yeah.
Tresman Marshall. So
probably the top cornerback in the country, or at least one of them.
Yeah. Talking about Kool-Aid.
You think that's why? You think he's rated so high because of his name? You think he just gets so much attention because of his name?
Yeah.
See, is he really like the 50th best cornerback in the country? But because he's like
got that little swag with the name.
He said, "I'm going to call myself Kool-Aid."
Yeah, they, to go with Kool-Aid, they got Amos, a junior transfer in out of Louisiana. And then you look at their safeties. Malachi Moore, he's a senior. The free safety, Caleb Downs, is a freshman. They love him. And then you got Jalen Key, a transfer in out of UAB. So they're trying to fill the gaps, trying to keep everything.
On top of these transfers in, don't forget that they've had the top 1, 2, or 3 recruiting class in the
because I think they beat Jimbo. Like Jimbo had the best one, and then Saban come back and topped him or something. So
yeah, it's back and forth.
So we look at their schedule, and Middle Tennessee State, 38-point favorite. Then they got Texas, favorite 8 over there. Then they go to South Florida, 34.5-point favorite. But then we start the conference play on, again, Tony, September 23rd.
Must-see TV.
Golly.
Ole Miss. When the conference play starts, it goes Ole Miss and Mississippi State, or at Mississippi State, then at Texas A&M, then Arkansas, then Tennessee. Then they get a week off, and they get LSU and Tuscaloosa. So they finish up with at Kentucky, then they get a Chattanooga before they play the Iron Bowl against Auburn. I am not as high on this team as most Alabama fans usually are. I got them going 9-3.
Really?
Yeah.
You got to take them lost to Texas, Ole Miss.
I got them
LSU.
I got them
Tennessee.
The games I got highlighted: Ole Miss, A&M, LSU, and then the Iron Bowl.
The Iron Bowl.
The Iron Bowl. Cadillac played with them for half the game last year and got away from them there in the second half.
Spoken like a true Auburn fan.
There it is. He can't root against him for that game. He's got to go with that game. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I got the second game circled. I got September 9th circled. It depends on how this Texas game goes. If they can manhandle Texas at home, if they can win by 10, 14 points, if they can put it on them, if they can stop Quinn Ewers, if they can do all the things that they were failing to do last year, they run the table. That's my. If they don't, if that's a really close game, or they barely get by that game, or they even take the L for that game, then I think they drop Ole Miss and LSU and go 9-3. So I think that September 9th is a big if.
It's a big game, man.
Yeah,
but what scares?
I wouldn't bet on them.
I mean, listen,
preseason.
Look, 10.5 wins. So they can win 10 games, and I bet under. So, and I still win my bet.
Yeah.
And if they get 11, then they just get my money. But, this quarterback situation, something's got to give here. Jalen Milroe, it maybe he's improved so much, but if he hasn't, what are we waiting on? How come he's not the captain right now? How come he's, what's going on? So.
Well, I'm concerned about the Texas game. Texas A&M game could be close as well. They're going to be in College Station. And depending on how bad they're banged up from the Tennessee game, the LSU game could be problems for them. But they are playing at Tuscaloosa, so that may play in their favor.
Yeah. Yeah, and A&M played them tough last year, 24-20 loss, so can't take anything away from Coach Saban, right?
Nah.
He is the GOAT. But I've been telling you guys for 2 years, it's over. And I'm going to stand by it right here tonight.
I think deep in your heart you need it to be over.
I need it to be over.
All right, so let's transition over to our Stay in the Truck Awards. This week, let me see. Chris, you want to get us going or you want me to start?
Oh, yeah. My Stay in the Truck Award is going to be easy choice right here. We've got Stay in the Truck goes to the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts continue their wise ways and good decision-making after a couple of preseason games where Gardner Minshew goes 19 of 21 with a 90% completion record and 1 touchdown, 0 picks, followed up with Sam Ehlinger throwing for 74% completion, 17 for 23, no picks. And then they got a new guy, a rookie QB that they drafted pretty high. Y'all may have heard of him. He was a nobody at Florida on a shit team that somehow got talked into being a top 5 draft pick, and through 2 preseason games is 7 of 12 for a 58% completion rate and 0 touchdowns and an interception. And the Indianapolis Colts have just named Anthony Richardson their starting QB for the new football season. So after the boneheaded move of Anthony Richardson, they have decided that they're going to allow what might be the NFL's top running back to seek a trade. Indianapolis Colts, stay in the truck.
Stay in the truck. So my Stay in the Truck Award this week is for the Spanish Football Federation president, Luis Rubiales. Apparently during the celebration for Spain's Women's World Cup title celebration, he was giving hugs to all the players, and he kissed Jenny Hermosa on the lips. So he played it off, wasn't no big deal. The celebration continued on. And so apparently after that, during this week, he caught a lot of backlash in the media. And so he come out with a formal apology today. So wasn't a good look, nationally televised. Apparently he doesn't have a relationship with this girl. So it just didn't work out very well. So Luis Rubiales, stay in the truck.
Stay in the truck.
That's it for this week's show. We really appreciate you tuning in. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave us some comments. Let us know how we're doing. Stay in the truck.